Mindy is the founder of Tom Tom Magazine, an all-female focused drumming magazine, and she is going to be speaking about, I want to hear,
media representation, music. Kieran Gandhi, who you all just saw as Madam Gandhi performing, is going to be prompting me with questions and is also one of my muses and part of our brain trust for the magazine. So I'm going to hand the mic over to her and we'll have a conversation and you'll find out what it is that I do and more about her in just a second. Thanks, Elise.
Welcome everyone. It's a real pleasure to sit with one of my heroes, Mindy Abovitz. I met Mindy many years ago here in New York City. I was in college actually, and I learned that a new magazine had been put out to celebrate female drummers, and I wanted to be a part of it in any way. And she gave me one of my first gigs opening for Beyonce's drummer here in the Lower East Side of Manhattan at Cake Shop, which is now no more. Mindy, my first question for you is, what made you even want to start a magazine for women who play the drums? And why specifically a magazine as opposed to some other form of writing about women?
Okay, so I started drumming when I was like 21, which is potentially a little late in the game as far as like picking up an instrument. But for some of you, it might be like just the right spot or early in the game, but anyhow, I started playing when I was about 21, and at about 29 years old, after working at loads of venues here in New York City, working at East Village Radio, the Cake Shop, Public Assembly, throwing shows in my house right over the bridge in Brooklyn for years, and touring with my bands, which all happened to be female musicians, I looked around and I thought to myself that my world didn't look anything like the world that the media was representing at the time. I knew incredible, powerful, talented women musicians in the hundreds, in the thousands, and when I Google searched female drummer online, there was this massive drought of representation of girls who played drums. There were questions like, can girls play drums? When I would Google search girl drummer, female drummer, woman drummer, and if I did an image search, it was 10 times worse. It would be like a scantily clad female next to a drum set. This is 2009, right? And then bunches of guys who drum. So 2009, I'm editing sound at East Village Radio, which is at First and First Avenue, for those of you who know it. And thinking to myself that I'm 29 years old and I don't want the next wave of girls to come up under me and experience what I did and have to battle this poor media representation of girl drummers and women drummers, women musicians, women anything, people of color represented poorly or not at all, people of different classes represented poorly or not at all. I'll go into that in a second, but I wanted to make a really good piece of media. I did not want to just make a website or a blog that could be easily dismissed. So I went for a print magazine. I printed it as nicely as I possibly could. We're now 6 years in, and this is issue 26. We're all about female drummers and beat makers, and we cover girls and women from all over the world.
Congrats, that's epic. That's amazing. Oh, it's fine. Why do you think so many girls don't play the drums? Why do you think from a young age they don't even do it? Why is there such a lack of women playing the drums?
I'll ask you that in a second too, but I feel like media and socialization plays a massive role into what each of us thinks we can and cannot do. If we never see an example of someone doing something that looks like us, acts like us, thinks like us, we may think we can't do it. Some of us may need that permission. Others of us may be rebels like myself and you, and we'll push through a wall that is set up in front of us, right? So I think the reason why there aren't as many girl drummers today as there are guy drummers is 100% to do with the marketing of the drum set. And so I've been working really, really hard on reversing that and getting the drum industry to put women and girls in their advertising to consider us when they go to build a new kit. The ergonomics of the kit, the physiology, the biology of the woman and the girl at the drum set. We named our magazine Tom Tom for a variety of reasons. The drum set is composed of toms. Tom is clearly a guy's name, and we all know what a tomboy means. It's all a joke. It's all a play on why women were not initially invited to the drum set and how can we reverse that, and then fill in the blank any stereotype that we can think of. How do we reverse that? How do we change that? How do we make everyone feel welcome to be themselves?
That's epic. That's so epic. Right, exactly. My question for you then is, now that we're seeing more women pick up the sticks and continue playing, either because of your work or just because of changes in the media and marketing, why is it a good thing that we have more girls play the drums? Who cares?
Girls and women doing anything that makes them feel good about themselves and powerful, which the drums do, and be able to creatively express themselves is the best thing we can do on earth. Anyone who feels like they're shut down, quieted, insecure, afraid, is going to feel bad about themselves and is going to potentially not fill their wildest dreams, right? You give a girl a pair of drumsticks, you plug a girl into an amp, you give her a microphone, you tell her she can say, do, think, feel, whatever she wants to. And you have this incredible being who's empowered all of a sudden, and magical things happen. The drums happen to be a place where your legs are spread open, you're sweaty, your own physical power makes the music that you hear. You're backing your band and supporting them, and you're creative. And you're oftentimes the peacekeeper, because your band's all arguing in the front about whatever they're arguing about, and you're all, let's just play, I want to just play, you have to wait. So I think allowing girls to be loud, allowing guys who feel disempowered to be loud, allowing queer people, people of color, people of underprivileged ability, class, whoever we are quietly or loudly silencing, to undo that work and letting everyone be heard and feel empowered and creative is my goal in life.
Dude, that's a pretty epic goal. You're the leader of the revolution. Mindy Abovitz, that's right. I have another question, which is, in the many, many women you've interviewed, you've traveled the world to interview so many drummers who approach drumming in different ways. Could you tell maybe one or two stories of true challenges you have seen that face girls playing the drums? Because I think a lot of times people are like, well, I'm not sexist, they can do whatever they want. Can you talk a little bit about the subliminal messaging that holds us back, and maybe one or two, anything, stories of a time where either she put down the sticks or she felt scared to play, or she said, this isn't for me? What did that look like?
Yeah. Okay, so we're at issue 26 right now, and each of our issues are themed. Issue 23, our staff and myself decided to theme band, B-A-N-N-E-D. We dedicated an entire issue to the subject matter of not being allowed to play at all, for threat of rape, for threat of death, imprisonment, excommunication, or simply being shunned. We covered women and girls all over the world who either stopped playing entirely because their lives were threatened, or they play in secret, or they moved countries in order to continue playing the drums. So this is what I call the very core of the sort of sexism that women and girls deal with all the time, is obviously like imprisonment or death, right? That would be like, okay, I'm just definitely not going to do that, or I'm going to threaten my life. So through a contest that I also run called Hit Like a Girl, I met a woman from Korea, from South Korea, who was playing drums, and she was incredible at it. And she got married, and her parents-in-law told her to stop. And she said no. And they said, well, you're not in my family if you continue playing. So she picked up and moved to Germany. She learned German. She continued her career there. She's an incredible drummer. She came back. She still has a very tangled and very complicated relationship with her parents-in-law. And I'm not pointing to South Korea as that's a place where people are extra in any way persecuted. I mean, America, everywhere you go, there's this level of I don't know, just people and intolerance. And you can read about her in issue 23. And then another example would be, for those of you who do or do not know, there was a battle of the bands in the United Arab Emirates about 4 years ago, and an all-girl band won. This is a high school competition. They're called Random Stars. And they very quickly got rape threats just all over their Facebook page, to the point where they had to remove their Facebook page, and there was a government-mandated fatwa against them to stop playing music for their own safety. These girls no longer play in a band. That's just a kind of example of what amplification of women and girls, the kind of threat that creates for some people. Still unclear why. There's religious reasons. There's obviously it's beneficial to shut some people up for other people. Who knows why? That's still happening. My goal is to expose it, and then to empower everyone to feel safe, unafraid, to allow people to be their creative, beautiful selves, and move forward from that point. Yeah, it was, thanks, guys.
I love that. Right on cue, guys. Good job. We rehearsed that. I wanted to ask you now, so you've spoken about the things that hold women back. You've spoken about why it empowers them holistically in the rest of their lives. Let's talk about the music themselves, like itself. So when women have played their drums, they've written music, they've story told, and they're further in their careers, can you talk a little bit about how important it is, this notion of women in history, of us telling our stories so that the next generation can have idols in the music world to listen to? I think, for example, hip-hop and rap music has inspired so many, specifically young black men across the country, because their stories are finally being told and heard. And even for me, listening to Kendrick Lamar, to Eminem, to some of the greats, you know, I feel like I learned so much about that walk of life. What happens when we have more women telling their stories and highlighting how diverse women's walks of lives are all around the world?
Well, I mean, I feel like you answered that question while asking it. It's like we get a wealth of stories, of information, of diversity, of feeling like I'm not alone, which is a huge thing when we start hearing stories that make us feel like we're part of something. And again, like, peel away the layers of insecurity. You present someone that you can relate to on a stage and amplify her, and she has a career and she's getting respected and paid for it, and we all start filling in that picture after that, you know? We need every star in the sky, not just three. And adding women into the mix is the entire universe, and if we leave us out, we're looking at a kind of dark place with a couple of like sparkly things, right? I want as many sparkly things as possible, and I want to see every one of us represented in some way in the media in a way that feels true and real, right? So these women who are telling their stories, and the more women and girls that get to tell their stories, the better off I think we will all feel. It's like a holistic kind of locally grown food versus like a crap manufactured sugar-filled candy bar.
It gives us diabetes. Right. Exactly. Yeah. He's just joined us. That's great. I would love to make sure that we address any questions or thoughts that the audience might have. This should be an open discussion. This is open to men and women, to young girls and boys, anyone in between who wants to ask a question. Please raise your hand. I would love to come up and give you the mic. Is there anything that you're worrying or wondering about throughout this conversation? Mindy has been doing it for so many years. She has a wealth of knowledge that you should tap into. Own your voice, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just kidding. Yeah, please do. Please do. And in the meantime, I think we're going to wrap in about 10 minutes, so please do think about any questions you might have, and I'll come up to you.
Okay, I'm just going to keep talking until someone thinks of a question, okay? So this magazine is a drum magazine, if people didn't quite get that, and we cover only female drummers and female beat makers from around the world. In a second, I'll read you the mission statement. The goal is to create really good media that anyone can sort of replicate in any field that they're in. When I started the magazine, I did not know how to do a magazine at all, and a friend of mine was like, you know, you need to sell ads. And I was like, what? What's that? Like, how do I do that, right? So it's a political magazine with an aim for social change, and when I was told that the way to keep this thing going was to put ads in the magazine, I used that as another extension of social change. And I told myself and my staff that we were going to sell ads exclusively to the drum industry because we are a drum magazine. We are not going to have clothing, we're not going to have makeup, we're not going to have tampon ads, and we're not going to have craft ads. We're going to have drum sets and microphones, PA systems and drumsticks, pedals, gear, hardware bags. We're going to have drum gear in our drum magazine that happens to be about female drummers. Okay, so I'm introducing that as like potentially one of the biggest hurdles that I've had, also one of the most rewarding parts of the magazine, and also how I feel the value of the dollar can actually make change, right? We're in a capitalist society, and so I'm thinking, how do I create change in America? I'm gonna use the dollar, as most of us have thought of using before. So that's been really fun, really challenging. People call us a niche. I like to talk about what a niche is and how that makes people feel on a personal level, and how that plays out in a business sense. Niches can these days be thought of as a great place to like put your consumer product in front of, because it's a market that's targeted and focused. We can also be completely ignored because people believe we are a small number and shouldn't be invested in, okay? On a personal level, the word niche means I didn't even know you exist. And how is it that you've created a business from this idea, right? So for the last 7 years, and prior to that, the 10 years that I was drumming, I've been told that I don't exist, basically. How could I possibly have a business about female drummers? How many of you are there? So that's been a really kind of big thing that I've been working against. We're thought to be 5 to 10% of the drum market. I believe we're more at 20%, and I'd like us to be 100%. So that's kind of where I'm going. I talk about us as the largest growth potential in the market. You know, there's a lot of ways to spin it. But yeah, and I want to talk about meeting Kieran Gandhi. So one of the byproducts of running a magazine is having an incredible community of female drummers from around the world who I get to call my friends, one of whom is sitting to my right. Women drummers are like a unicorn breed of very powerful, very humble, and like loving humans, because we sit behind our drum set. Unicorn. We sit behind our kit, we do whatever our band tells us to do, we wait till they say we can hit our drums really hard, and then we are really happy smiling like and behind a bunch of people. So we're just humble and like energetic, and for the most part are trying to keep our bands together and not break up so we can keep playing, right? So I get to be surrounded by people like Kieran, and I'm going to retell the story of how we met. I was throwing a party for our issue 2? A long time ago, I don't remember, at the cake shop, issue 2. Kim Thompson was Beyonce's drummer at the time, and she was headlining the show. And Kieran and I made friends on Facebook, and she was coming up from DC at the time. I didn't know her. This is a lot of how Tom has gone. I didn't know her. I watched a clip or two of her, put her in the magazine immediately as a drummer to watch out for. She comes to New York City, and she opens the show solo on the drum set and brings with her water bowls that she's playing percussively. She's playing water percussively in a crowded New York City basement bar at, how old were you? Like 20 years old. I was like, what is even, this is my life? How is this happening to me? And since then, we've done 1,000,001 things together, and Kieran's been M.I.A.'s drummer most recently, and now she's got her own incredible project that's blowing up called Madam Gandhi, which you probably just saw. And she didn't tell you that she's playing on Monday. Did you tell everyone? Okay, she's playing at Baby's All Right, just right over the bridge on Monday. Talk about that.
Actually, that's going to be a very cool show because there's a group called Girl Cult that was started here in New York, and they really talk about the current sort of rape culture that we live in, and not to bring like a negative vibe to this very positive energy, but just noting that sexual assault is still a huge problem in this country, and it's not something that's a priority when it comes to women's equality, and it must be made to be so. So we're doing a huge fundraiser on Monday. I'm going to play at 10 p.m. They have very powerful speakers coming in, but August 1st, Baby's All Right, Brooklyn, 10 p.m. Drum set, my producer is going to be on the stage, my lighting person, my sound person is coming down from Boston. We're going to do it right. It's going to be a good show. So please do join. Thanks for promoting that.
Of course, I'll be there. And I'm going to like wrap it up with a final thought, and then if anyone has a question, and then we'll be done and say thank you to Elise and everyone else who put this street fair together. I guess I want to summarize and say that the reason why I do what I do is because I hope that each of us feels like we can create media or word of mouth or events, create a reality that we want to be in, to not feel like in any way apathetic or that we can't make a change if we see something wrong, whether it's like in the moment tapping someone on the shoulder and saying, I think you just made her feel bad or him feel bad, or I think you just left me out and I'd like to be heard right now, all the way to creating a media company like I've done and running your own magazine, website, social media, talks and events. You can do that. I did that because I was angry. I'm still angry. I still want to see things change. You can totally do that. If you feel like anything needs to be done, you can do it. That's my designer right there, Marissa Kirk, in the awesome shirt. So congratulations. Usually I'm playing the drums. I personally don't want to be called a girl drummer. I'm a drummer. I'm a female drummer if you need to. I'm a woman drummer if you have to. I'm a drummer. I'm not a girl drummer anymore. So for me personally, the word girl is very much, it's like the Girl Friday. I'm still like in the past trying to reclaim woman. I'm a woman. I'm really proficient at what I do, and it's not like, oh, the girls just got into the office. I don't know, I feel weird about the word girl used as a blanket word for all of us. Obviously, I love the Riot Girl movement. I love girl power. I love how girl is used. but I personally like the word female, and then of course trans inclusiveness, and I'd love to get rid of gender as a binary system at all. But for right now, I'm using female for that reason, because I feel like it can be used to sort of, I don't know, to take away from, I don't know. Do you want to, you probably have a totally different opinion about that. Can you talk?
I can talk. I'm formulating my opinion. You know, whenever I say, if I do say, she's a female DJ, or say, you know, she's a female chef, I mean, I say it usually as a good thing. I'm like, there, yeah, you know, there's like 2 female chefs who made this, or this restaurant is owned by a female restaurant owner, because I'm so stoked, you know? And I do have a slightly more positive thought, which is that when men, or when people who are not as sort of focused on gender equality as we are say it, I think they're acknowledging the novelty of it and the specialness of it. I do think there's a lot of that, which is like, oh, it's really special. Or if someone, let's say, like, you know, remember Boy President? The little, like, 9-year-old boy? Yeah, exactly. Oh, so, like, the Kid President, that's what it's called, Kid President. So, like, you're putting the word kid because it's a unique thing, you know? So I do like that element of it. That said, of course I recognize that when people say, oh, there are 2 chick DJs, or there are 2 chick whatever, usually the undertone is they got the gig because they're hot. That's the undertone, and that's when it's a problem. They got the gig because they're the girlfriend of whomever, you know? That's when it's a problem. When we remove merit from it and we use it as a subliminal tool to, like, reduce the legitimacy of their role, that's when it's an issue. And so it's less in the actual language, I find, and more in the energy through which it's delivered. And that's how I would acknowledge the difference. Because when I'm saying, like, 2 women own this restaurant, or 2 women made this cookie, like, I'm usually really stoked to eat the cookie because it has female energy in it. You know what I mean? So then it's a really cool thing. It's so special. And how special that she's made this or done this or whatever. It's so unique. The amount of hurdles that women have to go through to achieve the same levels of stuff that men do is amazing.
I could really, like, analyze things for a really long time, so I'm apologizing in advance. But, like, boy power, what does that mean? Or like there's a boy DJ performing today at the fair. What would that mean for us? So I understand that reclaiming girl and giving it the power it deserves and has always deserved is an agenda with using the word girl. I think there's many other layers to it that other people can speak to. I really love the idea of reclaiming the power around the age of what those things, how they're defined, so that women don't have any qualms feeling like I'm 50 and I'm a woman, or I'm 25 and I'm a woman, or I'm whatever, you know, like erasing all that stuff is sort of like what I'm working with, I'm trying to. But I know other people are doing excellent work around taking girl back to make it just like a really powerful word, as it should be, and as it always could be, you know, could have been. So, sorry, it's like complicated. Cool. Awesome. Does anyone else, okay, we're good? Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Thanks everybody for, like, doing this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for getting into it in the afternoon.